What? Damn, bro. Keith Frank being your boy, bud.
I'm
Does
just
my nose look like Ric Flair's nose?
We are the National Wrestling
Don't look
Clipping
at the
Alliance.
camera. Don't look at the camera. What? I'm getting flustered.
You're gonna get one of these, bud.
I'm Jess,
And I'm Wes.
and we are the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance, and you are watching the NWCA podcast, the only wrestling history podcast out there that doesn't just talk wrestling history, we show wrestling history. Wes, my God, it's been time since I've been on the show.
Missed you so much, Jesse, and it's not like we haven't been talking. It's just life happens, and we're back. That's all that matters now, and we're ready to rock it right out of the house.
Yeah, so for everybody that wondered, because there were some rumors that I left the show and all that, I did not leave the show. My laptop broke. I moved. Lots of stuff was happening in my personal life. So that's why I wasn't here. Not to mention, the NWCA podcast team had a bit of a shakeup. Our editor, Johnny G, who's been with us since day one, he had to leave the show. We don't hold any grudges against him or anything like that. He stuck around and helped us find a replacement. So with that, I want to welcome Daniel Dart to the team. Daniel Dart, for the Ontario indie fans that watch this, he's always around doing photography, film. He's a referee. He's a good kid. And Johnny still helps when Daniel helps Daniel on the editing side with
Perplexed, yes.
questions. Yeah, it's like an assistant coach almost. And I'm
So
fighting
there was rumors, Jesse, that you were dead.
Yeah, no, far from dead.
That you had gone to France and you would like some sort of a Jim Morrison thing. I don't know, but we're back and you're here.
I feel like death with this head cold I'm fighting, but whatever. So with that, I want to thank Johnny for everything he did for the show.
For sure, 100%.
For all the hard work he's done for the show. And he's still a part of this NWCA team. And again, Daniel Dart is stepping up to the plate. And we're very excited to have him on board so we can continue doing our episodes. And speaking of continue doing our episodes, while I was going through all that stuff, moving and all that, Wes, you did a great job with your special guest episodes. We had Andy the Taxman, our good friend from Manitoba. I know we had George Shire and Dave Brzezinski.
Yes, which is coming right up soon. So
yeah,
actually, you'll see that before you see this.
Pretty much. That's how episodes usually work. But yeah, so again, thank you to those three gentlemen for going out with Wes and getting the show going. Our goal was the show must go on. And I kept saying that. I said that we can't stop. We can't stop. We got people that really like our show, so the show must go on. And it did. So yeah, and you did a great job. How was it talking to those three?
It was amazing. I like Andy. We talked about a great card in AWA land here in Manitoba. And then we talked about two great cards and about 6 months worth of wrestling on the AWA show with George Shire, who is like a tap. You just turn him on and he just spews wrestling history. It's amazing. And then Dave is a personal friend of mine, and we've drank wine together. And we've palled about for a few years now, off and on. So it was nice to speak with him. And he has some fantastic memories of both being with the Sheik and then being a wrestling manager also in the 70s. So that was cool also.
Yeah. Again, awesome job keeping the show going. On another note, as long as our podcast was going, we did do some other business. And we aligned ourselves with a gentleman named Mark Madison with Pro Wrestling Post. Wes is rocking the shirt.
Extra large. Like, my God.
Oh, my God. Throw it in the dryer. But Mark's a great guy, and he's letting the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance join his team. And we do all history content for him. Wes, you're working on your third article for him already.
Fourth.
Oh, fourth article.
Yeah.
And I did mine on Whipper and Gene Kiniski, the rival of Canadians, and which is funny enough, that's what our show's about today, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So if you're looking for more history content from Wes or myself, go to prowrestlingpost.com. Check out the wrestling history section there. We got our articles up there. Speaking of wrestling history, as we record this, the news is circulating the world about Terry Funk. And unfortunately, Terry Funk has passed away.
Yeah, it's sad when our heroes leave us, and unfortunately, as we move on, all our heroes will leave us, and it's sad. I can't believe I was lucky enough to see him wrestle live. I think only twice, maybe three times, and
Yeah.
one was in Buffalo versus Ric Flair, and that was just absolutely spectacular. Buffalo, New York, that was spectacular. And then I saw him later in his career at a show at Maple Leaf Gardens versus the WWF champion Hulk Hogan, and that was spectacular. And at the time, it was rumored that yes, Terry Funk was going to take the belt because Hulk had bad knees. And I was just looking at some pictures that I got out that I'll be posting on all our pages, and we'll be showing here after the fact. And we can see looks like Bill After there. So as soon as you see Bill After at a big show or a big card, you think something's going to happen for sure. But
Yeah.
it was great seeing him with Jimmy Hart at Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens back in about '85 or something like that.
Yeah, but it would have been cooler
Legend,
to see.
legend for
It
sure.
would have been cooler to see Ric Flair versus Funk in New York, though.
The slaps, man, they just it was he put his I posted something earlier and he put his, and people say body and soul, they usually go body and soul. I said his soul and his body because he probably it seemed as though he walked into the ring or was getting ready to go to the match and everything about him was about the match. The whole persona, the whole around him, everything was about the match, and he put everything into a match. And when he went on later, oh my God, when they started going to ECW and stuff like that, that was just berserk. And if anyone ever gets a chance to check out some of his matches, they're just like he said, just crazy guy, crazy guy, and did it all in professional wrestling.
Yeah, you can't really debate it either. He had a significant moment in Toronto with the title change with Harley Race too.
Of course, yeah. Big time.
And
Big time. Big time. Big time. Big time.
yeah, so again, rest in peace to one of the greats, and it's sad to see. And we just wanted to bring that up because it literally happened. We just found out the news maybe 5 hours before we hit record. So
Yeah. Rest in peace, yes, sir.
yeah. But today's a big show. Today we are in London, Ontario. We're doing a couple shows in a row now. Now that we're back on track, me and Wes are reunited, and it feels so good. Yeah. But we're doing 3 Ontario shows back to back.
Yep.
So if you're into the Ontario wrestling history or a part of our Ontario Wrestling History Facebook group, this episode is definitely going to be one of your favorites. Tonight we're going to do London, but the main thing about London is that it's Whipper versus Gene Kiniski.
Yes, 1957 we're going back to, and what can we say? We've these two guys we talked about the most about anybody other than maybe Ric Flair, and you can't stop talking about two of the greatest wrestling Canadian icons ever.
No. But before we get into that, I just want to bring up a sponsor, Grumpy Bear Vinyls. Grumpy Bear Vinyls is a custom-made apparel and goods store. You can find them on Facebook. Customize your cups, your t-shirts, your mugs, your photos. Use them for a gift. Use anything you can. They carry our merchandise, NWCA shirts, sweaters, cups. You can get all of our NWCA stuff from there. So you can support the show by supporting their company. And we're still glad to have them on board. Again, that's Grumpy Bear Vinyls. You can email them. I think it's grumpybearvinyl@gmail.com. I'm going to have to double check. I'm probably going to butcher that. But message Liz on Facebook, on Grumpy Bear Vinyl's Facebook, and you can get anything made. She's pretty good. And she did actually the Pro Wrestling Post shirts that you're wearing right now.
And the turnaround's very good too.
Yeah, very quick. So with that out of the way, Wes, before we get into our show, you know that we got to do one thing, and that is set the scene. Now, usually when we set the scene, guys, we have many champions to talk about. Usually we cover the top three, but being 1957, WWF isn't even a company yet.
Yep.
The AWA isn't a company yet. So there's only one champion right now, and it's the NWA World Champion, Luthez.
Nothing except the best right there.
Well, Luthez is the man.
Yeah. It's to watch some of the older videos when he was getting older, and see him in the ring was it's quite interesting because you can't really tell what kind of a guy he probably was. There's so many people that aren't even on this earth anymore that would have seen him in his earlier days, and I can't even imagine him getting a hold of you and gripping even a hammerlock or something, a wrist lock even. Oh my God, he could probably just murder you.
Yeah. One of the greatest of all times. Oh my God. You're nuts. This guy's crazy.
Indian wrist burn.
You can't say Indian anymore. It's offensive. What a joker. Okay. One more thing we got to talk about.
Yes.
And that's Grand River Tea.
Yep.
Grand River Tea has been a proud sponsor of the NWCA podcast since day one. You can get your premium loose leaf teas from grandrivertea.ca. Search their wide varieties of teas, loose leaf teas. You make your healthy choice. I'm a big fan of the breakfast tea. And you can save 15% off your final purchase by using the code NWCA at checkout. So that's the main thing there. Save money while you stay healthy. Use the code NWCA at checkout. Save 15% off your final purchase. And again, support Canadian business, man.
Yep. Support them, support us.
Support them, support us.
Yep.
And yeah, this is going to be great. I'm excited. We haven't done this together in a long time, so I feel bad I'm fighting a head cold, but I'm all right.
Are you a little echoey? I'm a little echoey too because I've got myself all closed up, not in my office because my office is under siege.
Yeah, you're always doing something to the house, bud. Always doing something to the house. Okay, Wes, today, two of our favorite topics. Boom, this guy right here.
Yep.
This is one of my favorite pieces, actually. This is from 1957, so the same year.
Yep.
And it's from one of the Oshawa shows. So this is an Oshawa show program. It's got all this cool stuff in it. I'm trying to see if they show the card. I try to keep it in pristine condition because how many people out there own an Oshawa program from 57, right?
I got 12 of them.
Oh, yeah, sure you do. Look at Ritson Road South. I think that gas station is still there. But yeah, so today, our boy Whipper and our other boy, Gene Kiniski, we're covering. And we've covered both guys separately before. On our previous podcast, the Ontario Wildman, we did a 2-part episode on Whipper Watson.
Yep.
And on our episode on the NWCA podcast, we've done Gene Kiniski, just a whole episode just dedicated to him.
Yes.
So now we're talking about two of our favorite guys here.
And we've talked about them. Sorry, we've talked about them on Andy's podcast also. And you cannot deny. I'll say this again, and you can say it again, and we'll say it again and again and again. You cannot deny the rivalry between these two guys who were perfect foes for each other. Absolutely perfect. Yakky yak, loudmouth, braggart, and the humble, supporting all issues of people and disabled people and everything. And Whipper Watson and Gene Kiniski, it's a gold mine.
Yeah, to me, it's the biggest Canadian versus Canadian rival of all time. I know everything in wrestling is going to be subjective. People are going to always say, "Oh, well, this is a better rival." Everything is subjective, but in my opinion, this is what made Canadian wrestling. This rival right here. Hence my article on ProWrestlingPost.com. Whipper versus Gene Kiniski. I did a whole article about it. But today we're not focusing about the whole rival. We're just focusing on London, Ontario, because that's where we are today. January 2nd, 1957, London, Ontario, and London Arena. And Wes, let's get into this card rundown, buddy.
Okay, the London Arena, just quickly, they would hold about 4,000 tops for a jam-packed house. And unfortunately, it got tore down in 1976. And one of our favorite guys, Dave McKigney, the Wildman, said that if he had known it was getting tore down, he would have bought it and turned it into his home arena. He would have moved from the Toronto area to London. And that's kind of sad that these old buildings were getting torn down and still are for the monumental multi-use places that they hold wrestling and gymnastics and swimming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera now. And that's fine. I get it. But I never was at the London Arena, but it sure sounded like a great place to watch wrestling.
Yeah, they did. They're doing that now too. They did it with the Oshawa Civic Auditorium. They reinvented it. It's like indoor soccer arena, swimming, everything now. So, and if it's not getting torn down to be reconstructed, it's being torn down for condos.
Yep.
Welcome to Ontario, Canada. Like everything's being torn down for a condo building now. But this card is absolutely stacked, bruh. It is stacked. So card rundown.
I can't believe some of the guys on this card. I cannot.
Well, let's get into the first match here. We're going to talk about guys as we go down. Dick Hutton versus Elio DiPaolo.
Yeah.
Now,
Dick Hutton, like seventh place in the 1948 Olympics. I think that's the same Olympics Vern Gagne was in. He was NWA World Heavyweight Champion also for 421 days in between Lou Thesz and Pat O'Connor. So it would have been after this run, after this time frame that we're talking right now. And they said he was a colorless champion. And I don't know if that means that he didn't bleed a lot or couldn't bleed a lot or wouldn't. Sometimes that's what colorless means in wrestling. I don't know if it's this case or not. A worthy champion, a worthy wrestler, but maybe he just didn't have the flair or something. I don't know.
But Dick Hutton, though, I know him. Now, here's where I know him from. Like, I obviously don't know him, right? But I know him being famous for if you beat him, you get $1,000. That was his gimmick for a long time. He did that match with Watson. He did it with everybody. You beat him a long
time, yes. And he didn't do it in Southern Ontario when he was working steadily here. He did it everywhere.
And anywhere and everywhere. He did that gimmick, which is kind of cool, I guess. Like back then, $1,000 in the 50s was a lot of friggin' money.
Oh, it was. You got to figure it was probably worth about $5,000 in today's money for sure.
Oh yeah, and Dick Hutton, he did tag with Kiniski before too.
Yeah.
So they used to tag together. So it's funny to see them both on the card. DiPaolo, now we're on him. Elio DiPaolo, I know him from being one of Whipper Watson's biggest tag partners in the 50s. They fought the Kalmakovs. They fought everybody. These guys were Canadian tag champions. They won belt. They won golds together. DiPaolo, though, he didn't travel a lot, I noticed. In my research, he stayed local. And when I talked to AC about it, he's like, well, he was from Buffalo, right? He's like an Italian guy. So he didn't want to leave home so much, apparently.
He traveled a little bit in his youth. I've seen him in Texas and California, but he was by this time he would have been he would have known his spot. I think he retired in about 65, so it was a few years after this. In the 60s, he probably just wrestled in the Great Lakes areas because it was an easy drive for sure. His wife was Buffalo promoter Pedro Martinez's daughter, Ethel.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I do have, I think somewhere on my phone, a good friend of ours from Buffalo, New York, Steven, has sent me pictures, I think, of DiPaolo's restaurant, the menu, and I think also a picture of his gravesite. So I do have that.
Yeah. Wild times. Next match. Sky High Lee defeated Billy Red Leons.
Lions, lions, lions.
I know. I just did that.
He's not French.
I always do that to piss you off. Leons. You're like, you're an idiot.
Like Yvonne Roberts, right?
Yeah, Robert. Sky High Lee was a Toronto guy.
Basically a Toronto guy, yeah. A Southern Ontario guy, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've joined the Sky High Lee British Wrestling Facebook group, and they've got some fantastic stuff on there. I've posted a ton of stuff up from my collection there and my research, so it's pretty cool. I got a really stupid story about Sky High Lee. Long dead. I didn't mark down when he died. I know he died like in the 60s probably, or maybe in the early 70s, but he died in Britain. He retired in Britain. He died in Britain. But in the late 60s, we were coming home from my grandmother's house, which was up near Owen Sound. You know where Owen Sound is, Jess, because you know where everything is in Ontario, right? So we're coming from my grandma's house, and she's coming to stay. It must have been Christmas or something. She's coming to stay with us in Toronto, and she's brought her 2 cats with us. So someone had to pee. I don't know who it was. Someone had to pee. Got out of the car. Now I had 3 sisters. So my mom, my dad, my 3 sisters, my grandma, her 2 cats, all the luggage, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So someone had to pee. We get out of the car. One of the cats gets out, takes off in the winter. And so, okay, we got to go trudging through the snow, see if we can find the cat. We never found the cat, but it was on Sky High Lee's ranch.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was it about? Just off the 401?
It was off Highway 10, just near Orangeville.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was everybody knew that he owned it. He was a wrestler.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to hide that kind of stuff back then.
Plus, the guy was like 6'5" and ugly as sin, right?
Yeah. What about Billy Red Lions?
He was a brother-in-law and promotional partner of Fritz von Erich and the Destroyer in the 60s in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
They bought the promotion off of Pedro Martinez and turned it around, sold it back to him 6 months later. He was the brother-in-law of the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, out of New York. They wrestled so many times against each other. It was funny to see them wrestle against each other when they were actual brothers-in-law. Of course, Billy Red Lions went on and became famous by teaming with Dewey here in Ontario as the Crusaders, and they held the international tag team titles in the 70s.
Yeah. What did you ever see that tag team?
No, just on TV.
Oh, okay. Did that tag team work for Dave too? The Bearman?
Of course they did, yes.
Yeah, right. I thought I recognized that name, the Crusaders. I could have swore that they worked for Dave. I just wanted to double check.
They wrestled mostly against the Love Brothers and the Kelly Twins and the Samoans, guys like that.
Okay, yeah. Afa and Sika?
Yep.
Yeah. Their nephews and sons and everything are lighting it up right now in WWE. Probably one of the best storylines I've seen in years, to be honest. It's been like 3 years.
It is a tremendous storyline, and I thoroughly enjoy just even skimming over the top of it because it is really interesting.
Yeah, you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. The bloodline.
The Usos, right?
Yeah. Wow, look at this guy. He's coming out with that modern talk. This guy's watching WWE at home, not even telling me. What a guy.
Yeah, that's not good.
Ken Kenneth versus Tim Geohagen.
Okay, so I have never found out how to actually say his name. I don't know if it's Geohagen or Jehagen or Gehagen or whatever it is, but I do have quite a bit written on him. But let's hit Ken Kenneth first. I always thought Kenneth was a Canadian, but he's not. He's a New Zealander.
Yeah.
And he was also a British Empire champ.
Oh, okay. Now, for everybody that doesn't know what the British Empire title is, it's kind of before the NWA, right?
It's like a Canadian branch of one of the
River Watson held it in the 40s, stuff like that. So Big title, big deal there.
And both Kiniski and Watson held that strap also.
Yeah.
So Ken Kenneth had he wrestled from 47 to 1960, and everyone's just asking me, well, what's his name? Couldn't have been Ken Kenneth, because what retarded parents would have named their son Kenneth, but that was not his name. His name was Ken Shishka.
Yeah. Well, Terry Funk's real name isn't Terry Funk either, probably.
No.
That's in peace.
So I remember when I was a kid, reading the magazines, I thought that for sure, no one could name their kid Dory, right? Dory Funk Jr. What kind of an idiot would name their kid Dory? I was ignorant, right? And then when I found out about Harley Race in the early 70s, Harley? What kind of a name is Harley? And then some friends of my parents, some of the relatives came up from the southern states, and the guy's name was Harley, and I was like, oh man, I guess it is a real name. I thought for sure they were pretend names. I thought Harley Race was a pretend name.
This guy kills me.
So, yeah, Timmy.
A big name in Maple Leaf Wrestling.
Yes, wrestled all across Canada also. He was huge in Calgary, huge in BC, huge in Ontario. I don't know if he ever hit Quebec or not. The guy wrestled from like 1949 to 1972. He was Canadian Tag Team Champion twice. I think they were with Watson probably.
Yeah.
I was reading a story about him, and in 1972 in Georgia, he was doing a thing on TV where he would give $100 if someone could break his hold.
Oh wow!
So he, guys come in the ring, fans, right?
Yeah, fans.
He puts the first guy to sleep, out cold, just like that with a sleeper hold. So they wake him up, and not that the sleeper hold isn't real. It is real. It is a real hold. But I mean, obviously they don't put them to sleep in wrestling. But so the second guy comes in, and Timmy puts the whole sleeper hold on him, and the guy breaks free right away. And it's like, oh, hang on, Mr. TV announcer, hang on, I didn't have it done right. So he clamps the sleeper back on again, and it breaks free again. It's like, holy smoke, what's going on here? So they decide, oh, well, he broke the hold. I'll give you the $100, and they put it towards his wrestling school education because he was at Tim's wrestling school.
Yeah.
Complete mark out. His name was Jim McKenney, and he ended up with a really short career, about 3 or 4 years.
Really?
How's that?
Boom! This guy coming out with the facts, bro. Hitting up with the facts.
Not Jim McKenney from the Toronto Maple Leafs. No, Jim McKenney.
Yeah.
McKinney. McCougal.
Well,
You say McBogle, I say McBoogle.
Whatever. I say friggin' Robert, so who cares?
Exactly.
Now it's time to get on to this, buddy. The
Yeah.
main event. The main event. Whipper versus Gene Kiniski.
At 258 pounds, from Vancouver, BC, Gene Kiniski. With a commitment to ring, weighing in tonight 237.5 pounds. From Newmarket, Ontario, the former British American Heavyweight Champion and former NWCA Semi-Pro.
Yeah, no one understood anything you just said there, bud.
That's okay, I did.
Now, we said at the beginning of the show, Whipper Watson and Gene Kiniski, we've covered probably the most in our podcast journey, besides Ric Flair. So, like, we're a couple of Ric Flair fanboys, hence our Facebook group dedicated to Ric Flair, which we'll talk about later. But the thing about this in the 50s is I noticed with the big matches between Gene and Whipper that they always bring in professional boxers, and that's what they did here. So I'll show it again, but Jersey Joe Walcott. Now, Jersey Joe Walcott was a professional boxer from the 1930s to the 1950s, And what's it said? Oh, what did I write down here? One of the best heavyweights in the 40s and 50s. So imagine being born and raised on boxing and then seeing this big name come in to referee Whipper versus Kaniski in London, which was technically, I would consider it one of Tunney's A towns.
Definitely in A-Town, yeah.
Right? Like Toronto was the big A town. That's the market, right?
Yep.
London was probably another A town. Toronto was, or like Oshawa would have been a C town, right? So, but to put him in then as a special guest referee, it just helps solidify how serious the rival was between these two.
Yeah, they would have built that up on TV so much, right? For sure.
Yeah. Well, Whipper, like I said, he was from North York, right? He's a North York guy. And then Kaniski was out west. It was, east versus west almost. Not to mention, when I talked to AC when I was writing the article for Pro Wrestling Post, I contacted AC, and he even stated that they helped popularize television, right? Because the rival was that heated.
And that intense, yeah.
It was so intense that I remember out west when they were in like Calgary or Alberta, like Calgary or Edmonton, somewhere in Alberta. Kaniski was stabbed by a Whipper Watson fan
Yeah.
because the heat was that real.
Kaniski was so good at it. He was just so great at being a heel. Just incredible. And on just quickly to talk about our BC page, I know some people have said you do a lot of posting about Gene Kaniski. Well, truthfully, the page wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Gene Kaniski. I mean, he solidified the area from like early 60s right through to the early 80s when he was in partnership with Tomko before they packed it in, and Tomko went on his own weird way. But we talk about Terry Funk, and yes, you can't compare him or them or anybody, but Kaniski was absolutely huge, brilliant career. I watch videos of him all the time. I've seen some of the videos over and over and over again. Just watching him exude from his mouth, let alone what he did with his in-ring talents.
Yeah. There's a reason that Whipper Watson and Gene Kaniski are both in the top 5 in Greg's book, the Canadians.
Yeah.
And he talks about the best Canadians to ever wrestle. So there's a reason that he's there. Just not just that too. He later on went on to be an NWA champion. You know what I mean? Kaniski, he's just like, this rival lasted over 30 years. Like I've said, I think we calculated in like 1959 or something like that. They wrestled each other like 87 times or something. So it's like an average of 3 times a week they were wrestling against each other.
242 or 282 times in their career they wrestled against each other. Some kind of fact like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
And with Whipper Watson too now. So you got a huge heel, Canadian heel. And then on Whipper's side, you have probably the biggest Canadian babyface up until this point, definitely.
For sure.
Like everything. Think of all the bad guys. His rivals with Nanjo Singh in the 50s and the 40s, right? Fritz Von Erich in the 50s.
Yeah.
He was Frank Tunney's Hulk Hogan, he was the Hulk Hogan. He was the Bruno Sammartino. He was the top guy. He's the John Cena. He's the Stone Cold Steve Austin. He is the guy.
He's it. That's it. After him, they didn't make any more.
No. I just wish I could have seen that. Imagine seeing Whipper versus Gene. The heat too.
And the only thing wrong with those kind of matches with the guest boxing referee, 9 times out of 10, they ended up with the heel taking a swing at the referee, and when he was a boxer, he ducks, one shot, boom, out, face wins. It was kind of predictable, but it was certainly a draw, and they probably even drew wrestling or boxing fans to the arena just to see him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just to see Jersey Joe Walcott live, for sure.
Not to mention, what's it say? Oh, I thought that said the price on the here, the ticket price, but they're just saying tickets are on sale from 10 to 10 at the box office, which you don't do anymore. You get them all online. Gene Kiniski went on to say when Whipper passed away that he made the most money with Whipper Watson.
I wouldn't doubt it.
He was NWA champion for 3 years straight, and the man made more money fighting Whipper Watson. That to me is crazy. You think he would have made the most money being champion?
You think so? But we don't. We have no idea with these guys. But you got to figure, yes. I think consider also Kaniska. Consider him the last of the kind of long-term NWA champions. After him, it was Dory Funk, and then it was Briscoe, Funk, Brace, Briscoe, Funk, and then it was just a
race.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with these guys at all. But like Fez held it this many times, Watson held it twice during that. And also O'Connor, Hutton, as we spoke of, and then Kiniski held it for like 1967 to 1969. 65 to 69. Sorry,
Yeah,
65 to 69. And it's like bizarre a person holding a title. Can you imagine the airline miles and the train travel that those guys did back in the days? Because there was no super highways or it's just bizarre to think.
Not only that, too, like the impact he had on Canada and Canadian wrestling.
Yeah.
So Bret Hart has even stated that he took like representing the Canadian flag all the time from Gene Kiniski. Right? He's brought up guys like Bret Hart has brought up guys like Whipper Watson in interviews and stuff like that. Because Whipper, he's worked for his dad. He probably wrestled his dad or teamed up with his dad, I'm sure. I don't have it off the top of my head or any results or anything like that. Unfortunately, though, in 1971, Whipper was hit by a drunk driver. I have an article here I'll show real quick. Oh, that's just the other side. So here you go. In the biggest fight of his life.
Yep.
Oh, here you go. It even says right at the beginning, Whipper Billy Watson has been subduing wrestling villains such as Gene Kiniski right off the hop. Boom.
Yep.
First name mentioned in the article, the Sheik and Bulldog Brower, who's another great guy, but we'll have to talk about Bulldog later on another episode.
We on one of our Facebook pages, we recently posted that article, and funny enough, I think it was Mark Robertson, who is Dewey's son, said on a post to us that, the fireplace screen that Whipper was throwing in his trunk was for Dewey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
It was for Dewey's house.
London, Ontario.
But yeah, London, Ontario, and they had a great run in London, right from the late 40s, weekly during the school year. So they only ran September to May or June, but it was weekly, every week. Jesse, and the research I'd done in London on the Tunney shows, they would have 2 or 3 articles a week, couple of ads in the newspaper, and the results every week of that time period. Just I started to take track of them, but I couldn't. It was impossible. It would take me years to sitting in the library, photocopying everything and getting everything down dated wise and everything. There was probably 5 or 6 wrestling articles in the paper every week.
Yeah. Not to mention too with this the 1957, you know what I do notice though? The cards are very small.
Match-wise, yes.
In the 70s, you got like 20 matches, 15 matches, right? And it's like 80s too. That's a lot of matches. Here you got 1, 2, 4 matches for just one night. So you got to think, Whipper and Gene probably did an hour.
They probably had a 35-minute match, yes. And then with the introductions and the after, then introducing Jersey Joe and everything, there's probably close to an hour. And the main event might not have, because of the stipulations that match might have had with the knockout. It might have been 2 or 3 falls with a 60-minute time limit, but they might have only gone 1 fall with the ref knockout. But the other matches would have all been 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
And so it's just how they did things back then. You know, we always think about looking at some of the cards from Kentucky or Tennessee or something like that, where they only had 3 matches and it was two singles, and the same 4 guys in the tag for the main event. And it's kind of, it is what it is, right? There's small towns. They couldn't bring in the big talent, or they had a small arena. Not every city had a Maple Leaf Gardens.
No.
And not every city even had a London arena where they could put 4,000 people in, right?
Not every city even got wrestling, period.
Yeah.
Okay, that about wraps it up for our London episode. Here's the card one more time. If you missed anything, guys, don't worry about it. We show it all in the credits. Do you have anything else you want to show real quick? Or
I have nothing to show. I couldn't find. I have a nice, beautiful 8x10 of Terry Funk. I couldn't find it, unfortunately, because my room's a mess. But we'll be posting everything in the credits at the end. I've got a ton of stuff on this card. It's going to be so cool to see. Lots of stuff you just never seen before.
Yeah, so make sure you stay through the credits, watch the show, all the stuff we're going to show at the end. If you want to find us on Facebook, National Wrestling Clipping Alliance Facebook group, 1.2 thousand members. Ontario Wrestling History Group, over 1,000 members. Wildman tribute page, over 1.2 thousand members. We have the Ric Flair tribute page, the Ric Flair tribute page, approaching 400 members. We just started that group this year. And the British Columbia Wrestling History page, which is also approaching close to 400 members. We have wrestling history groups everywhere, but most importantly, if you don't want to miss an episode and you want to get the notifications, NWCA podcast on YouTube while you're watching right now, hit the subscribe button. We're at 186 subscribers. Help us get to 200 or more. We just want to keep growing. And now that I'm back and me and Wes can do our thing, we are full steam ahead, man. And
Gonna be knocking them out. Yep.
knocking them out. Boom, boom.
I added them up today. We're over close to 4,100 members in our 5 groups. And if I had the time, I would be doing more groups, but I just don't have the time. I'm not there yet. And
I'm trying to let the other groups grow a bit too, because we just started them.
yes, although they're doing really, really well, and it's awesome. Unfortunately, the fake people are starting to show up all the time now. So it's a pain in the ass having to secure everybody, make sure everybody's a real person. There was 3 people who signed up today for one of the groups, and they all got blocked.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but it's the way of the world. Unfortunately, the internet's not a safe place anymore for anything. But except for us, we're real.
We are as real as it gets. We say it all the time. We're the only show that doesn't talk wrestling history. We show wrestling history. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Wes.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Wes.
We are the National Wrestling Clipping Alliance. It's the NWCA podcast. The NWCA podcast.
I love doing this, and I love you in a, cool wrestling history kind of way.
Hey, easy, man.